Good morning. How's everybody doing?
Good.
All right. My name is Ryan Weber. I'm the lead product manager for Google Sheets.
And I'm Dan, product manager on Google Sheets as well.
We are here to tell you 30 ways Google Sheets can help your company uncover and share data insights. You excited? All right, let's jump in. Cool. All right, so this is you. You are searching for those data insights. You are looking around for those nuggets of gold that's going to take your company to the next level. Take it from a here, maybe even to a here, I don't know, up here even. Who knows? Let's not get too crazy. But we recognize that while finding data insights is super valuable to your company, it's not always the easiest thing to do. You got to find that data wherever it may be. You have to bring it together into your spreadsheet. You have to clean it, prepare it, and get it ready for analysis. And you got to write those formulas. And you have to create those pivot tables, create those charts, work with your collaborators. You have some commenting. You're doing some printing. You're then distributing it out in slides or docs. It can get a little overwhelming, right? But we hope that you don't feel like this. That's why Dan and I are here to help. We hope by the end of this presentation, you'll be feeling like this. You'll be excited to do all of your analysis in Sheets and ready to take on the world with all those insights. So how are we going to do this? First, we are going to show you some time-saving tips to help you and your team be more productive. Next, we're going to highlight some new features that have launched in the last year that maybe you've missed. And finally, we're going to give you a sneak peek into some upcoming features that will be launching in the coming months. So Sheets democratizes the analytical workflow to help you get insights faster. Now, what is this analytical workflow? Basically, it's the way the data will travel from start to insight. So first, we have the collect phase. This is you gathering the data wherever it may live and bringing it to your spreadsheet. Next, you have the prepare phase. This is taking your data and cleaning it, formatting it, getting it ready for that next phase, which is the analysis phase. Here's where you're writing the formulas. You are creating your charts, you're creating your pivot tables, getting ready to get those insights. And finally, there's the share phase. This is where you're sharing out to your collaborators, maybe getting some input from them as well, and then distributing it out to your broader team so they can learn from all of your findings. Now, all of this sits on top of our collaboration framework. This is at the heart of what makes Sheets, and more broadly G Suite, so special. And we'll talk more about what G Suite and Sheets is doing to lead the way here on collaboration. So that's how we'll be structuring our talk. So we'll start from the beginning. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Dan to talk about getting data in.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. So the first step of the analytical workflow that Ryan just mentioned is getting your data into Sheets so that it's ready for that analysis. So now we're going to jump through several different ways of getting your data in. The first one is you could start with a template. Sheets has dozens of professionally designed, created templates for you to get started in one click. And something that's really awesome is that you can create your own company templates. So let's say your finance team has a reporting process that it does on a routine basis. They can create a reporting template that lives inside your company, only accessible there, and then you can use that, and in one click, you get started, and from then on, they can create that report from there. Another way to get data in is through importing it through a bunch of different file formats. For example, you could import a CSV file, a comma-separated values file, or even Excel files directly from Gmail. So you'll see this little attachment card in Gmail. Simply click the little pencil icon, and then you're brought into Sheets, one click, and you can start your analysis. Once you're in Sheets, there's a variety of import functions that allow you to bring in data. See a lot of pictures being taken. You don't necessarily need to memorize everything on this screen. If you ever need help, Sheets is there for you. Just start typing equals inside of a cell, and all of this information will actually be there to help you. The first function on the list in particular is interesting. It allows you to bring one spreadsheet, content from one spreadsheet into another one. So that's a really good function to know about. Another way of bringing in data, through Google Forms. Google Forms helps streamline workflows and really helps make data structured in a way to get that data into Sheets. It helps prevent errors because people are inputting data into fields. And the data, when it's submitted in a form, goes directly into Sheets in real time. So you're able to perform that analysis quickly, right away, without having to wait. So let's actually take a closer look at how a company, one of our G Suite customers, is using Sheets and Forms. Avery Dennison, I actually think a few of you might even be in the audience today, is a G Suite customer. Fortune 500 company, 25,000 employees, global company, right, big. And so one of their processes was they wanted to understand how customers were liking the various products to make certain business decisions. Leaders would make these decisions, but they didn't have a great way of getting the data from employees. Employees had this information, but there was not a great way to share it. So they would outsource some of this research. They'd go to some other company and say, well, can you put together a research report and give us the findings, right? Switching to forms and sheets, they're simply able to distribute a form in this case. So what they're able to do, send it to the employees. The employees were able to fill it out. And then they got the data inside of sheets right away to make these decisions. What this ended up doing is they were able to save thousands of dollars by eliminating some of these outsourcing needs for these research processes. So a really great way of how sheets and forms can help you save time and money through processes like this. We also have other ways of getting data in. For example, our APIs. An API is a way that other applications that you're using in your business can talk to sheets. Some of the updates we made over the past year were improving the APIs so we support more functionality that was added to sheets. For example, pivot table updates, charting updates, and we'll get to some of those a little bit later as well. We also added support for the second bullet on the screen here for something called developer metadata. I'm not going to get into it too much here. There's a few other sessions at Next where we'll dig in a little bit deeper. But really, I think what this means is what it allows you to do is it makes these integrations more robust. So when an application is sending data to sheets, and then maybe you move around a column or you rename something, the application doesn't actually lose track of where the data is. So it can make the integration much more seamless. So on that note, we actually have a few announcements to make here at Next that we're super excited about on the integration side to help you bring data in. And the first is an integration with SAP. So we know that a lot of companies live on SAP. You have all of your operational data there, and you want to perform more analysis on it. So starting now, you will start seeing a button in SAP to download your data from SAP, export it, and put it into Sheets. Seamless, one-step click process. Once you're in Sheets, you're able to collaborate on it. You're able to use all the analytical tools to get started and use Sheets normally. If you'd like more integration on the SAP and G Suite integration, just check out that link on the screen. There's some more information on how to get started with that. Another integration I'm really excited to announce and get you all on today is a data connector for BigQuery. So Ryan and I attended Next last year, and we were speaking with a lot of you in the audience. And one of the things that kept coming up was you wanted it easier to connect Sheets and BigQuery. So today we're announcing a beta program. You can follow the link on that screen. And what this really does is it allows easier access to BigQuery data. In the past, you had to be a data analyst or someone with a little bit more knowledge, comfortable going into BigQuery to get those insights and extract information. But now we're bringing that to Sheets. So everyone inside of your company who's familiar with spreadsheets can start pulling insights from BigQuery. We have yet another integration to share with you as well today, and this is with Salesforce. So we're partnering with Salesforce to offer a data connector to pull your Salesforce data into Sheets as well. So this is built as an add-on. You can simply go to the add-ons menu inside of Sheets to enable this and get started with it. And so once you do that and you pull your data in, you can do your analysis, you can collaborate on it, and then you're even able to push the changes back to Salesforce. Really seamless workflow that we think will work really well with working with Salesforce data. And then I also have a sneak peek feature to talk about. In the future, in the coming months, you'll see a new option in Salesforce to open data inside of Sheets. When you click this new option in Salesforce, you'll actually see a spreadsheet embedded directly in Salesforce. So you'll be able to use Sheets, analyze data without ever having to leave the Salesforce UI. We think this will be a really seamless pleasant experience for people, so we're excited to have you try that out soon in the future as well. This one's not quite available yet, but stay tuned in the coming months for more information on that one. So that was a lot of different ways to get your data into Sheets. Hopefully excited about some of those sneak peek features. And I'll hand it off to Ryan now to talk more about preparing your data for analysis.
Great. Thanks, Dan. All right, so next phase, preparing your data. This is getting your data cleaned up, formatted properly, and then ready for analysis. So first off, we have what's called text to columns. So if you've pasted in data into your spreadsheet, you can use text to columns to turn that into tabular data. You can, if you have a CSV file, a tab-delimited file, et cetera, text to columns can be your friend. We also introduced a new way to use text to columns this year. It's called fixed width formatting support. So on the left there, you see a fixed width formatted file. Now when you import it into Sheets, it turns it into the tabular data on the right. So now it's easier to work with that data. We've also introduced grouping rows and columns in the last year. This is a common enterprise request. So now if you're looking through your data, trying to get it formatted properly, you can actually expand or collapse different sections of your data very easily through grouping of the rows and columns. We've also introduced checkboxes into cells. So let's say you have a column of data, and it's of a binary format, meaning there's two values. So it could be true, false, it could be yes, no, it could be reviewed, not reviewed. Whatever it is, you can turn those two values into checked or unchecked, basically. But once you have that, you can actually treat that like any other value in a spreadsheet. So you can use that. You can use formulas against it. You can use it for conditional formatting. You can filter on it, et cetera. It's all treated just as a regular value in the spreadsheet. We've also introduced macros, another common request for Sheets. So now with macros, you can automate repetitive work. So let's say you want to format your data, you want to clean it up, but you need to do that again and again and again on each tab in your file. Rather than doing it a bunch of times, you can just do it once, hit record, and it'll record all of your operations, and you can then replay those operations on each additional tab. It'll save you time. It'll prevent you from making mistakes. Maybe you'd forget a step if you were to do it manually again. So it's a nice time-saving feature and a lot of power there behind those macros. Sheets also has add-ons. So add-ons are additional functionality you can add to Sheets. For data prep, you can do a bunch of things. You can do remove duplicates, merging data, normalizing values, detecting outliers. All of that is available in the add-on store. These add-ons are made both within your domain by people in your company and also by third parties. So you can find a bunch of different functionality, not just in data prep, but even beyond that. So if you're interested in supercharging your spreadsheets, we encourage you to check out these add-ons. Google also has AppScript if you want to do even more manipulating your data, getting it ready for analysis. So what is AppScript? AppScript is basically a scripting language available in the Google Apps platform. It's available in Sheets. It's also available in Docs and Slides, Drive, et cetera. Now, what can you do with it? You can create automations. You can automate steps in your spreadsheet. You can create custom functions. So out of the box, Sheets has 400 plus functions available, but you can add even more that you've written yourself. And you also can use what are called triggers. So triggers are initiated when something happens in your sheet. So let's say a particular cell is edited or someone opens a spreadsheet. That can kick off an additional AppScript function and do further manipulation of your data. So it can be pretty powerful. So on the right there, that's what AppScript looks like. It's basically modified JavaScript. And over the last year, we've added even more functionality to AppScript. So we've added support for things like pivot tables, charts, conditional formatting, and a bunch of other stuff. So now AppScript is even more powerful. It's allowed you to do even more manipulation of your data. So with that, we're going to do a demo. So I'm going to switch it over here. I'll try that one. There we go. All right, let's see. Hopefully this works. We got a spreadsheet full of data here. We have these 4 tabs at the bottom, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. If I just click through them, you'll see they're all kind of formatted in a similar way, but with different quarters worth of data. And so what I want to do is I want to format one tab once, and get that in good shape, and then just apply that to the rest of my tabs. And I can do that now through the macros functionality I was talking about earlier. So let's do that. So I'll start with this Q1 tab. I'll go up to the Tools menu. And now there's this new macros menu available here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Record Macro. And so now you see the bottom, it says Recording New Macro. There's that blinking red light. That means it's listening. So it's going to listen in to see what I'm doing in my spreadsheet. And what you'll notice is I'm going to do a bunch of stuff, and you'll see the text starts changing next to that blinking red light as it's capturing all the actions I'm taking. So let me start formatting and preparing this file here. So I will highlight my data. let's auto-fit it to fit my columns. Let's apply some alternating colors. Actually, I like green. Let's switch it over to green. OK, let's freeze the first row. OK, it's looking good. It's looking good. I notice here that there's this column here. Looks like it's not formatted as a percentage, so I will change that to a percentage. I'll change the precision. OK, looks good. All right, this column here is just true and false. I could leave it like that, but instead, let me use the new checkboxes feature. So I can go to data validation. Let's force it to be a checkbox, so all the trues will become checks, and all of the falses will become blank. OK, so that looks better. And you know what? I don't want to see these dates. I like just this workdays column. That's enough. So I'm going to hide these via the new grouping functionality. So let's group these two columns, and I'm going to collapse it. So it's not gone. It's just kind of hidden for now. All right, that feels pretty good. I think this tab is now in good shape. So I'm going to save it. And I can give this macro a name. So let's call it Ryan's Super Awesome Formatting Macro, 3 exclamation points. All right, and I can give it a keyboard shortcut. So let's save that now. So it's saving my macro. All right, so it's saved. So now if I flip over to the next tab, Q2, rather than doing all that stuff again manually, I can just go up to the tools bar, macro, and now I see my awesomely named macro. And I will click that, and so it's going to run it, and it's going to apply all of my stuff. Voila. So now my second tab is the same as my first tab. Save me lots of time. Oh, that's not necessary. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're too kind. So that's the power of macros. And now, so we just showed macros in the context of preparing data, but you also can use it to automate creating charts, creating pivot tables, and all that good stuff as well. So with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Dan to take us to the next phase.
Right, we'll just flip back. All right, so we talked about a bunch of different ways to get your data in. Now we've prepared it. Let's get to the really fun stuff of analyzing it and then visualizing it. So one of the best ways to analyze data is through pivot tables. Pivot tables, if you're not too familiar, take a big set of data, and you're able to summarize it in a smaller table just to help get those insights out. So Sheets has had pivot tables for many years now. However, in the last year, we've updated pivot tables with lots of extra functionality. For example, simple change we made, we've updated the UI so that it is easier to read values and really understand the data in a pivot table better. We've also added several new advanced functions, like the ability to do drill downs. So you're able to right-click on a value in a pivot table and see the underlying values that make up that pivot table entry. You can also do groupings in pivot tables. So similar to what Ryan showed just earlier on groupings, but with pivot tables, you're able to take things like dates and combine them into things like quarters and years. Lots of other features that we've also added to pivot tables. So if you haven't checked out pivot tables in the last year or so, definitely take another look. They're much more robust and advanced now. Another way to analyze data, filters. So Sheets has the basic filter that you've probably all used before. You add a filter to your spreadsheet. It changes the content for everyone. All right, that's great, right? But in a collaborative environment, we also have a second way of filtering that we call filter views. This is unique to Sheets. And it works nicely in a collaborative environment because what it does is it only affects the person who's viewing that filter. So if someone else is working, you both can have your own filters without impacting each other's work. So you can look at what you want, and someone else can look at what they want, and you're not messing with each other at the same time. This slide actually lists a bunch of the differences between filters and filter views. So filters, again, if you want to impact everyone, you want everyone to be on the same view at the same time. When you also perform operations and then you remove or delete the filter, the data stays exactly how it was. So if you sorted it, it stays sorted. On the other hand, with the filter view, it's kind of like a view that sits on top of the data. So you can have lots of these different filter views, and multiple people can be working on them at the same time, and you don't disrupt each other. You can have lots of them, too. You can save like 10, 15, 20 different views. And so you could have one that you then send links to other people. So each person could have their own personal view of the data, right? And really cool is that you can use it even without edit access. So you can share a spreadsheet and say, hey, I don't want you to messing up any of this data. You can't edit anything, but you can still filter it, and you can still see the information that's relevant for you. So if you haven't used filter views, I definitely recommend checking them out. It's really like filters built for collaboration. So definitely check that out. In addition to filters, we also have, as Ryan mentioned earlier, over 400 spreadsheet functions. We have all the basics, like VLOOKUP, SUMIF, match, et cetera. We've added over 50 in the last year. Some pretty complex ones, like the statistical and mathematical ones listed on the screen. And in addition to those, we've actually added some unique ones that no other spreadsheet program has, like the average.weighted function, which lets you perform a simple weighted average calculation, and the sortN function, which lets you get the top values from a list. Let me actually show you a little bit more what I mean there. So let's say you wanted the top 5 values from a table that looks something like this. You have a bunch of transactions, and then you want something, as a result, that looks like this. So you have the top 5 regions in terms of the sales that they generated, the revenue that they brought in per transaction. With the sortN function, simple one-line formula to get the top 5 values from this list. If you tried to do this with a formula without this function, seriously, it turns into like this massive thing. It is super complex, time-consuming to write, really error-prone. If you wanted to deal with like tiebreakers and things like that, it gets really difficult. So this is just one example of how Sheets is helping you save time and really reduce errors. Another feature related to formulas that helps you reduce some errors are suggestions. So this is a new feature that we added over the last year, where Sheets, if it thinks it can help you out with a formula, it'll actually suggest the formula to you, so you don't even have to type it in. This is something that we've seen that makes formula entry up to 5 times faster than writing it yourself from the data that we have. So definitely take a look for this in your spreadsheets. All right, so we went through pivot tables, filters, formulas. You've done all this analysis. It's not time to chart it, right? Put it into a visualization. Help people understand all of this data. With charts, we have all the basics, line, pie, bar, scatter, right? Over the last year, we actually added what's on this screen shown, a waterfall chart. If you're not super familiar, a waterfall chart allows you to look at positive and negative values over time and then see how they add up to subtotals along the way. We've also added tons of new features to really help you customize your charts and tell a story with your data. So lots of different things listed on the screen that we've added over the last year. But we know some of these analytical features are a little bit more advanced, complex. So Sheets has your back there with a feature called Explore. Explore in Sheets brings intelligence to your spreadsheet. The way I like to describe it is kind of like it's a data analyst sitting by your side, helping you with your spreadsheets and doing analysis. You can ask it questions in English, natural sentences that you want out of your data. And it'll actually also suggest formatting pivot tables and charts. So it'll say, oh, this would look good, or hey, have you thought about this pivot table? Right? And it'll help you out with your analysis. Over the last year, we've improved Explore even more so that it, oops, pressed it a little too much. We've improved Explore even more so that it will actually understand even more types of questions. It'll give you pivot tables as results. It'll give you charts as results, so you can ask for those types of things. And even if you don't want to ask, you can simply, Explore or even suggest pivot tables to you. So you don't even have to know what a pivot table is or anything. It'll just say, hey, this actually summary of data would look really good for, and help you out. So let's actually show, there you go. Let's actually go to the demo and actually show you some of this in action. So let's just switch over. All right. So this is actually data that I have. This is some sample data that I've actually pulled from Salesforce. So remember, actually, at the beginning, I had mentioned the Salesforce integration. This is actually what you could expect, this type of experience over Salesforce data. So I'm in the spreadsheet here. Let's actually just open Explore. As I mentioned, it's in the bottom corner here. And let's see what it has for me. So just like that, in a click, I'm able to get a bunch of analysis that is ready for me. I see some charts that are highlighted. I see pivot tables. But I'm looking for something in particular here. I'm looking for example, I know this is revenues and regions. Let's say the total revenue by region. Oh, made a little typo. Sorry about that. It's always a little bit hard to type at the same time. But there you go. OK. So even though it didn't get it the first time, retyped it. And looks like that is exactly. So I can see this in a chart, right? It provides me a few different options of seeing the data. I also can see this in a pivot table format. So, and notice like my question, right? I never actually even had to ask for a pivot table. So I didn't need to necessarily know what this was called. I didn't need to know any of these advanced things. I just said, hey, I want to see the total revenue by region. And now I got that result. So let's actually insert it. So I can actually click, one click to insert that pivot table. And there you go, right? Like that's the fastest way to create this pivot table. But let's actually do a little bit more analysis. Let's drill in a little bit further. Let's look at it over time, right? Let's see how the revenue has changed over time. So let's add this date column. And there we go. So now there's a bunch of dates over time. But as I mentioned before, you can actually group these together as well, because there's a lot of transactions. These happened over individual dates. So let's actually create a grouping and see this by quarter. So there we go. And now we're able to see it grouped up by quarter. So the next step you might want to find is, like, what's interesting about this data, right? So let's actually highlight some of this and apply some conditional formatting to see if there's something that sticks out. So I'm able to go to color scale, apply a conditional format, and there we go. So now I'm actually starting to see some interesting things pop up from this data. For example, in the Southwest in Q2 last quarter, there's quite a bit of sales, right? Like there's a large volume here. It stands out relative to the other ones. So I might want to understand this a little bit more. Like what happened here? Again, I'm able to right-click and say Show Details. This is a new feature added in last year. And what this does is it shows me the individual records that make up that value. So now I'm able to really understand what is going into this pivot table and help me get insights and understand the data in a lot more detail. So that's a summary of a lot of the ways we're assisting you with analysis. I'm just going to switch back to the computer. A lot of the ways we're assisting you with analysis, a lot of the new features that we've added over the last year. And a lot of this is great, but it's the stuff that we already have. What about some of the new things that are coming up? One of those features is something we call slicers. It is a different way of filtering your data. For example, if you're creating a dashboard with a lot of charts, pivot tables, a slicer is a great way to filter the data on your dashboard without having to go back to the original data sheet. So you can hide that data sheet, you can share it out and not make it visible, but then you can still allow people to slice and dice on that on the dashboard. In addition to filter views, remember I mentioned filter views earlier are a nice way of collaboratively filtering. We're going to make slicers work in a similar way. So you distribute your dashboard. They're great for sharing. You can distribute it widely in your company. And then everyone will be able to have this single source of truth, this single dashboard, and slice and dice on it without affecting other people's views. You don't need to give them edit access, right? They just have view access and will be able to understand the data. Another features we're adding are several different charting improvements over the next year. For example, the #1 feature request for charts that I hear is highlighting a bar, like shown there. We'll also support things like new chart types. For example, something we call a scorecard chart, which allows you to highlight KPIs, key performance indicators of your data, and really make a splash about them and showcase them in your charts and visualizations. So hopefully you're excited about some of those new features. That wraps up the analysis section. I will now hand it back off to Ryan, who'll tell you how to share this analysis.
Thank you, Dan. All right, so sharing and distributing your analysis. So the first type of sharing I want to talk about is sharing with your collaborators because you want them to work with you on your data. So up here we see a GIF of some real-time collaboration, people working together simultaneously on an analysis. Now, This has been at the heart of Sheets since day one. We think this is super powerful. It allows you to be more productive working together. Single source of truth in the cloud. No more passing around attachments of Excel files. No more being locked out of a workbook. You always can work together in the same file at the same time. Very powerful. We also allow you to distribute your results through embedding. So let's say you want to share out some results by pasting a table or a chart in either slides or docs. We now support embedding both those tables and charts in slides and docs. And what that means is that those tables and charts are linked to the source file. So you have your source Sheets file. You paste in the chart and table into slides or docs. And if you make a change to that source file, with one click, you can update those tables and charts in slides and docs. That way, they'll be refreshed, no more being out of sync with the source data. We've also enhanced printing. So for those of you who like to share out via paper, no judgment here. We've enhanced our printing capabilities. We've added custom page breaks. We have custom headers and footers, custom paper sizes, better print preview, custom margins, and we also save your print settings. So again, if you're one of those people who loves to print, we got your back. Sheets can help you print to your heart's content. Next, I want to talk about comments. So I think comments are often one of these unsung heroes of collaboration. And I want to talk a bit about how they can be used in a pretty powerful way within Sheets. So this is comments in Excel. It looks kind of like a sticky note, and it's a kind of blob of text you can slap onto a particular cell. And that's all well and good, but we think you can go further. And so in Sheets, you actually can have a rich conversation, comment thread in your spreadsheet. So you can point to a particular cell. You can see who wrote what, when they said it. You can reply to those comments. You can also mention people. So through a plus sign and an email address, that will notify them that they're being talked about in a comment thread. In that email, there's a link that will take them right to that particular tab in that file to that cell. So it's much more efficient. We've also have what are called action items to take it one step further. If you need someone to take action on a particular cell, maybe they need to fill out a number, or they need to double check something, you can say, hey, you know what, Dan, I want you to take a look at this cell. Can you please fill this out? Mark it as done when you're finished. So again, it makes it very easy to stay on top of what needs to be done in your spreadsheet. Just to hit this home, we want to talk about, again, why we think Sheets does this so well. In Sheets, we allow you to actually be able to comment on files without granting edit access. So people can give feedback without necessarily changing the underlying data. We also allow you to hide comments from viewers so that people, if you share broadly, those viewers can't necessarily see the behind-the-scenes conversation. You can reply to comments in Sheets, which we think is great. You can mention other collaborators and notify them. And we also create these trackable action items within the sheet, again, which we think are super useful when you're collaborating with others. We also launched this year Activity Dashboard. So this allows you to see which of your collaborators have viewed your spreadsheet. So if you see that Dan hasn't looked at my spreadsheet yet, why hasn't he looked at it? I can email him right from this interface and remind him. Or if he hasn't looked at it in a while, I can ping him and say, hey, look, it says here you haven't viewed this since July 10th. A bunch of stuff has changed. Please take another look. So that's another feature that's launched very recently. We also have version history. So all the edits that are made in a spreadsheet are tracked. And so what you can do is you can go into version history and see what's changed, who's changed it, and when those changes happened, which is very powerful. On top of that, we launched a new feature called named versions. So named versions make it really easy to mark important milestones in your document's evolution. So what you can do is you can actually give it a name, like draft or readout or final version. And there's actually a toggle at the top that allows you to say, just show me those named versions. And you can see a diff or what's changed between each adjacent version. So again, it makes it easy to see, oh, what changed between draft 1 and draft 2, or between draft 2 and leadership readout. So all of that is easily accessible right in version history. We also have notification rules. So maybe you've shared out your file, and you have some collaborators doing stuff. Well, you want to know maybe what they've changed. So if you want to stay on top of that, you can say to notification rules, notify me whenever a change has been made, so you get that in real time. Or you can say, give me a daily digest of what's changed in my file. So again, when you're sharing and distributing your files, if you want to stay on top of those changes, notification rules can be very powerful to stay on top of it. So I want to talk about a company that's making the most of sharing and collaboration. Lush is a cosmetics company from the UK. Before going Google, they would send schedules around as email attachments. They had a legacy collaboration system that crashed regularly, slowed down their productivity, not ideal. But after they worked with G Suite, now all their employees access the most up-to-date schedules from Sheets, no longer have to go through email attachments. And so the impact is now they're saving time. They're able to see the content from any of their devices, whether it's their laptop, their desktop, or their mobile phone. And their managers have streamlined the scheduling process. Everyone's seeing the same single source of truth in the cloud. Everyone can see the same file anytime. It's a much more efficient, error-free process. So with that, I'm going to jump into a demo of how all of this can fit together. So let's jump back over. And so now Dan and I are going to be in the same spreadsheet at the same time. So we're looking at this 2018 balance sheet tab. I see Dan's in there at the top there. That D stands for Dan. And you can see this little red rectangle moving around. That's Dan moving the cursor around. And he can start filling out numbers. So we can see him putting in things. I'll be over here. I can do whatever I want there. And so you see we're just editing real time. It's pretty seamless, pretty easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a comment here. So I can just plus mention Dan. And so I'll say, so autocomplete his email address. Hey, Dan.
Hello.
Please take a look. Don't talk to me. Comment. All right, so now I've mentioned him. And so now he can open the comment, and he can reply right to that comment if he wants. That's great. Maybe he's gone and he's assigned me an action item somewhere. So let's see if he goes in. So we had action items are a way for him to tell me, hey, Ryan, I want you to fill out a particular blank cell or take a look at another value. So he's going to create an action item. And so let's see if that pops up. And so you can see this count at the bottom. That 2 represents the comments. And so, looks like there's a new action item here. I see that he's mentioned me. I can take a look at this. It's been assigned to me. So what's going to happen is I'm going to get an email notifying me that this action item has been assigned to me. So if I jump over to my demo email here, we can see if you get an email with an action item, what's nice is at the bottom of this email, it tells you that I have 6 files with action items assigned to me. So if I actually click on this View Files link in the email, it's going to take me to Drive, and it's going to filter down all of my files to just show me the files where I have action items assigned to me. So it makes it much easier to find the files I should be taking action on right now. So in this case here, out of all of my files, it looks like these are the 6 files. Here's that demo file we're just looking at. The numbers next to it correspond to the number of action items that I have in that file. So I see here one action item. And if I click on this, it's going to take me into that file, to the right tab, right to the cell where I need to respond. So give it a second, and there it is. So it took me right to the place where I need to take action. So now I can go here, and I can say, let's put the number in there first. Put the number in. All right. And now I'll say OK. And I can mark it as done. So voila, I'm done with that work with that action item. So that's how you can use comments, mentions, and action items to be more efficient with your work. Now, I also mentioned version history before, and the concept of named versions. So let's say we feel like this spreadsheet's in pretty good state. Now we're ready to review it with a leadership team. And so I can go into the File menu, and rather than making a copy or doing any of that other stuff, I can just say, let's just go into version history and name this current version. So I'll call this ready for leadership review. And so if I save this, what it's done is it's marked now in revision history that milestone in this file's evolution. And so if I actually were to go into revision history, so let's do that now. So go into version history. Let's see the full version history. What I can see here is there's in the top right, there's the named version review, ready for leadership review. You can see who's made the changes most recently, so you can see my name and Dan's, and there's a little color square next to each of our names. And that color corresponds to the cells on the left, and you can see who changed what. So it looks like Dan changed all the pink cells, and I changed the green cells. You can see what's different there. Now, I mentioned earlier, I can actually toggle this switch at the top right to only show named versions. So now it's going to reduce it down to just those important milestones in my document's evolution. And if I click on each one, it'll show me everything that's changed between each important milestone. So in this case, those are the changes between now and the Tuesday update. If I click on Tuesday update, I'd see what changed prior to that. Monday readout, third draft. Here's what's changed between third draft and second draft. So you can use this to kind of see major evolutions of your document. So that's how you can get more out of version history. And finally, we talked about Activity Dashboard. So that's here in the Tools menu. If I open this up, I can see everyone I've shared it with. I can see that Dan and I are active now, but Maya hasn't been in since Friday, so if I want, I can click this, hit continue, and I can email her out and say, hey, look, there's a bunch of changes that have been made. Please take another look at this file. And then finally, we have notification rules. So again, this is where you go if you want to see any changes that have been made. Email me right away. If I save this now, I'll get pinged every time someone makes an edit into my file. So this is great if you really care about a particular file and you want to stay on top of all those changes. All right, so that's how you can use the most out of collaboration and sharing. Let's switch back over to the presentation. Cool.
All right, so we basically covered a lot of the main content of the analytical workflow. You've seen how you got your data in. You've prepared it, we've analyzed it, visualized it, and you've shared and distributed it. But we also know that a lot of times you're storing fairly sensitive information inside of spreadsheets, so you want to make sure that it's safe, secure, and you need it always available wherever you are. So we have a bunch of extra features that make sure that we're ready for businesses in your enterprises. The first is the fact that when you share a file in Sheets, you're just sending a link to someone and instead of an attachment. So what this means is there's no need to download a file that then is stored on someone's hard drive that could then be put on a USB thumb drive or re-forwarded or something like that. It's just the link to that file, which then you have to click and open, and then you're authorizing using your Google account credentials, which you can then also go in and add two-factor authentication to. So an extra layer of security, you have to have another device or security code in order to log in and really protect that data. Additionally, the Gmail team launched a feature a few months ago called confidential mode. And this works really nicely with Sheets. What it does is if you add a link to a Sheets file using confidential mode in Gmail, confidential mode lets you lock down that email so that it can't be forwarded, so that the contents can't be copied. And so what this really does is adds even an extra layer of security to your emails that you're sending. We have a similar feature actually in Sheets as well. So in the sharing settings, if you go to share a file, you're able to see this option to prevent people from downloading, printing, and copying content. So again, another way to really lock down sensitive information in those cases where you need to. Furthermore, we allow you to set expiration dates on files in Sheets. So if you want to share something, maybe you only want someone to take a quick review of something. You don't need to give them access forever. You're able to set a time limit on how long they have access to that file. So for example, if you only want them to have access for, let's say, a week, you're able to set 7 days. And then after that time period, the sharing automatically gets revoked. You don't have to go back in and forget about it, right? It automatically gets taken away and they're unshared the file. So these are just several different ways of how we're keeping the data more secure over the old way of working with attachments. Additionally, we know that you're on the go. You need to have your data always available. So that's why Sheets works offline as well. So though Sheets was born on the web, it works great. It's collaborative. In those cases where you do lose an internet connection or you're traveling or whatever, you can also work offline with Sheets. You can go to Drive and enable the setting, which will start syncing your files to your computer for offline access. And regardless of where you are, if you're on a phone, a tablet, or your laptop, Sheets works across all the devices. We have mobile applications, so you're always able to access your devices, even if you're away from your normal desktop computer. We also know that in enterprise, you have a lot of users that are transitioning from older systems or different technologies, right? And so we have a series of features that allow you to easily transition from other products. In this example, I'm actually showing keyboard shortcuts. So people have built up muscle memory over tons of years, right, using spreadsheets. What we've added over the last year is a way to override browser keyboard shortcuts. So in the past, browsers would sometimes perform certain actions when you did press certain keys. With this new feature in this toggle, what we allow you to do is you're saying, no, actually I want to use the Sheets keyboard shortcuts, the spreadsheet ones that I'm more familiar with, not have the browser override those. So you can go into keyboard shortcuts and enable this new toggle for that feature. If you want to learn more about transitioning to Sheets and tips and differences and things like that, you can follow the link on the screen. that provides a bunch more information on how you can transition from other spreadsheet tools to Sheets. All right, well, I thought I would take a quick time for an example. We've gone through a lot of the analysis workflow, just showing you how it all basically comes together with a customer. So Prado Services is an HR services company. They're based in Belgium. And one of the things that they wanted to do was they wanted to understand how they were doing. They wanted to monitor and improve their service delivery capabilities. So for those of you who aren't in HR and might not know what service delivery it means effectively answering employees' questions around HR topics, or things like delivering payroll so people get paid, right? And so they had some challenges that they wanted to solve. First, their data was in lots of different locations, spread out. Some of it they had to enter manually, or they had to kickstart processes on an ad hoc basis. Some of it was on-premise. Some of it was in the cloud, right? And so how did they solve this? One of the things they did is they took their on-premise data in a variety of different file formats, for example, CSV files, which you talked about earlier, and then they used Drive File Sync. So once they sync those files, now they're in G Suite. They're available for the cloud for access. Then they wrote a little script to convert the CSV files using AppScript into Sheets. This is what Ryan showed a little bit earlier. They were then able to set triggers, which automate this, so it could run every single night. And it can do it when you're sleeping, so that in the morning, when you wake up, you have all the data right there. It's fresh, ready to go. You didn't have to do anything. It's all automated. And then it's dumped into Sheets, and you're able to use charts, pivot tables, and have your analysis and have your dashboard set up for you in the morning with the latest fresh data that was brought in. So just to summarize what the impact this has had, they're now getting more accurate information and able to make better business decisions because they were seeing this data updated daily instead of it having to do it a week afterwards or having to do these repetitive tasks every single day. And they're also able to share these files. So everyone in the company, they could just share out the entire file to see the analysis instead of someone, well, I had to do the analysis on my computer and then sending you an attachment and then versions getting out of sync. Everyone was just on the same source of truth and being able to see the same file. So that was a lot of enterprise features. We hope you're excited by all those things. I also want to take a minute as we wrap up to give you a sneak peek into some of the other things we're doing for enterprise. We know that you have a lot of data in your company, which is why we are really interested in improving scale and performance of Sheets as well. This is something we're super focused on. Right now, Sheets supports 2 million cells. We plan to bump this up to 5 million over the coming months, so stay tuned for more improvements there. We want to make sure that Sheets really perform well at these larger file sizes. So this is a continued focus for us. Additionally, we'll be offering images inside of cells. So if you have, for example, a company logo that you want in the top corner to really brand your spreadsheet, or if you're creating an inventory spreadsheet like the one shown here, images in cells allow the images to follow the content along. So if you move around a row or you filter something, the image stays associated with that content instead of it just floating on top of the grid. So hopefully you're excited by some of those sneak peek features. I'll hand it back off to Ryan to recap everything we just went through. I know it was a lot.
Great, thanks, Dan. All right, quickly recap here. We went through 30 different ways that Google can help you and your company uncover all those great insights. I'm not going to read through those there in the interest of time, but again, we went through getting your data in, preparing the data, analyzing and visualizing it, sharing, collaborating, and distributing it out to your team, and showing how Sheets is enterprise ready. We also talked a bit about some sneak peek features that are coming in the coming months, the BigQuery data connector, performance and scale improvements, images in cells, charting features, slicers, and the Salesforce integration. So we hope you're either using G Suite today or you'll be deploying it soon so you can make the most of these features when they're ready to launch. As a reminder, if you are interested in getting into the beta for the BigQuery data connector, or you're just interested in general about Sheets plus big data, we want you to check out that link there, gsuite.google.com/bq-sheets. You can put your information there, get involved in our beta, and be included in future studies and betas for other big data and Sheets projects. Want to learn even more? We have a bunch of great sessions coming up. I want to highlight this afternoon there's a CIO panel. That green rectangle says it's a can't miss, and green rectangles never lie, so definitely check that out. I think the times are going to be a little bit off now, but again, encourage you to whenever the updated time is, check that out. So that's it. We hope you're pretty excited now to do analysis in Sheets. You got this. Go out there and make the best analysis the world has ever seen. Dan and I will be around afterwards if you have any questions. So thanks for your time.